When you go to Texas, what's the big thing you eat? You eat Texas brisket, you eat sausages. I'm sitting here in Cass's Deli and look what I have in front of me. I have brisket and sausages. These could almost pass for barbecue if you didn't know where you are. I mean, look at that. Pastrami. Kind of looks like a piece of brisket, doesn't it? Corned beef actually is the same cut as brisket. It's made from brisket. And here we actually have brisket proper from a Jewish deli in New York City. There's so many similarities between these cuisines, they have to be related. Can I get some barbecue sauce, please? Pastrami is not actually a cut as much as it is a process. It's rubbed, it's cured, it's brined, it's then smoked, and then it's often steamed back at the time of service. And you can have pastrami of very many different cuts of beef. Pastrami originated in Europe as a Romanian dish called goose pastrama. The commonly held belief is that that went through Ellis Island, ended up on the Lower East Side, and when they couldn't find goose, the dish that is known as goose pastrama in Romania morphed into beef pastrami in the United States. However, there is also a theory that that actually was not the way it happened. We're in rural Texas, out in hill country, and the theory is that pastrami, as we know it in the New York City deli, actually came from Europe through Texas and then to New York. Czech and German butchers migrated to Texas and brought with them the way that they prepared meat and cured meats in the old world, and then using local ingredients and local techniques and local proteins, ended up with something that looks not unlike this, which is beef brisket. The similarities to pastrami are evident. You have a thick bark on the outside, you have a smoke ring, a pink inflection on the actual meat, and then you have the meat itself, which has been cooked for long hours, breaking that collagen down, making it very tender. I'm gonna get some more perspective on this. I'm gonna head to Dallas next and talk to Daniel Vaughn, who is barbecue editor of Texas Monthly.
Good to see you too.
I'm finally in the Lone Star State with you. This is a rare treat.
Welcome to Dallas. We're gonna do a sliced brisket sandwich. Can you do one just on white bread?
Sure. So this actually brings us perfectly to the reason that I'm in Texas. You actually had a very interesting theory.
Well, right. I found these old advertisements for pastrami, except it took me a while to find them because they didn't call it pastrami back then. If you look back at the history of Texas and the migration patterns, there was a lot of Jewish settlement going on in El Paso, and then in Corpus Christi as well.
They certainly would communicate back with New York City.
And if you look at New York back in those days, there weren't a lot of meat markets who happened to be smoking their leftovers, back in the back.
Right.
But in Texas at that time, those were all over the place. So they would get the full navel, 8 bones. Well, all of a sudden that beef plate started to become more and more expensive. One of the reasons is because it became really popular is pastrami. So all of a sudden they had to shift to what was a cheaper cut, the brisket.
Well, we shouldn't stand around this counter when we could be eating at the table.
Absolutely. Let's get to it.
Well, this is heavy. Is this how you work out?
Funny enough, though, we're talking about these deli connections. It wouldn't have been on white bread, though, back in the 50s. It would have been rye bread.
Rye bread, which again harkens back to who originated pastrami as it's sold in New York.
Right. Because, you talk about that history of Texas barbecue being something to do with leftovers to prolong their life.
Right.
Well, if I'm thinking about doing that today, what better way to do that than to pickle the meat and then smoke it?
Well,
it's going to stay on the shelf a whole heck of a lot longer than just smoking it.
So play devil's advocate. What do you think the arguments against this theory are?
The arguments against it are that I can't find any documentation earlier than right around the turn of the century.
Okay.
I would be much happier if I could find something around, 1885, 1890. But the other part of that is I find it in many parts of Texas. El Paso is the earliest, but it didn't take long to make it to Corpus Christi, even into Dallas. The trouble with the sort of research in that time period is there simply was a lack of advertisement and a lack of coverage of food in the newspapers.
Right.
So
it's the opposite that we have today.
Right.
Now we have an overabundance of it. We shouldn't complain because our jobs depend on this overabundance.
Exactly.
We will probably never know the true answer to this question, but the speculation is certainly interesting.
I'm looking forward to more pastrami-based research.
All right, cheers. Thanks very much for watching from me and Daniel Vaughn. Goodbye from Dallas, Texas. We'll see you on the next Meat Show. So Daniel, how many times a day do you get told, I wish I had your job?